Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
Hey everybody, Dr. Dad's coming at you. This is Dr. David Wardy. Dr. Nick, how you doing, man?
Good, brother. Another beautiful day in paradise.
How's Vancouver looking today?
It's pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's been a nice little spring we've been having so far. Can't complain.
Ditto over here in South Texas, man. In El Paso, we're having some nice spring days. So, buddy, we're going to get into a lot of all things mindset with the theme of today and the guest that we have on. And I'm really excited to bring this guy on. This is a good friend of mine. He's a patient, confidant. We get into very deep conversations. This is one individual that I really enjoy speaking with almost on a weekly basis and diving into a lot of things that I think are in the unknown as we speak. That many people don't talk about much, but these are the things that me and Anthony really like to dive into. So we have Anthony Randle on today, and he is the author of the book, A Husband, Best Friend, and Caregiver, The True Story of the Struggle Within. So Anthony is going to share his story with us today, and we're going to really dive into a lot of things that many individuals that have had health struggles, that they had needed to combat in their lives, that can be this huge alarm where life all of a sudden gets turned upside down, and having to take action and then from that moment moving forward really change your life and what you're doing to be able to beat some of these diseases. So Anthony, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. How you doing, David?
I'm very good, man. Thank you for coming on with us today. We're really excited to really talk about your book. And I want to kind of just start off with a little bit about you. So Anthony's from Texas. He's from Texarkana, and he joined the Army after high school. After one tour, he went to college. That's where he met his wife, Jess, and he played football for many years in Arena Football League. Now he enjoys spending as much time as possible with his wife, son, and his two bulldogs, Bear and Mia. He likes working out, lifting weights, riding bikes, playing tennis, going for walks with his beautiful wife. And let me tell you guys something about Anthony. If you don't see the video that we eventually post, he's a very big guy. He's huge, okay? So he's like a giant teddy bear, okay? You meet the guy, and like he's very intimidating when you look at him, when you're around him, but he's like one of the most loving, genuine individuals I think I've ever met in my life. So just to kind of paint the picture for you, man. So, and can you kind of just start us off, kind of why you wrote this book, and then share with everybody a little bit about the whole reason this has all come about and why we're talking today and about your book and everything.
Okay. Yes. The reason I wrote the book, because I was sitting in the emergency room after they had moved my wife to the back, and I remember sitting out in the waiting room, and I had my hand over my face, and somewhere deep inside me, I knew something was really wrong with my wife. And I was sitting there thinking, I wish somebody could have wrote a book about what I'm finna go through, because I knew at that moment that I was getting ready to go through something. I just didn't know what it was, but I was sitting there thinking, I just wheeled my wife into the emergency room. She was crying. It's like 2-3 in the morning, and it's like I had no guidance. It was like, because us as men, we always want to know what's going on in our family, with our spouse, our kids, no matter what it is, because we have that protective thing in us, and we always want to know what's going on, and, so we can kind of nip it in the bud or take care of it. But at that moment in time, I didn't have an answer for anything. I didn't know what was going on. And it was kind of like being just blindsided, just being in the dark and not having anything to kind of guide me to what's finna get ready to go, what's finna get ready to happen, during that time. So, and that's kind of where the book came from, because I didn't want anybody to go through what me and my wife went through, not knowing, you know, after she got the diagnosis and everything. So it was kind of a guide for people that's going through any severe um, disease or anything that they have a battle or something that's in their life. It's kind of a guide for that.
So would you mind sharing with us what the diagnosis was and what
Uh,
news you got after she came out?
yes. Originally, like I said, it was like 2, 3 in the morning, and my wife, she woke up and she was crying, and she told me that she had her side over her rib cage was hurting, and before that day before, she had picked up her computer bag, and we thought maybe it was too heavy, and she kind of had strained herself. So, I picked her up and put her in the car, took her to the emergency room and everything. And like I said, once they called me back and they ran all the tests and everything, the doctor came back and told me that my wife had stage 4 breast cancer. So, and, my wife, like I said, she's, me and my son, you see us, we look like my wife's bodyguard. 'Cause my wife is 5'2", and I'm 6'4", and my son is 6'5". But you know what? But that 5'2" frame, she's very, very strong mentally. She holds our family together. And the thing was, when the doctor told her that she had stage 4 breast cancer, and it really hit me, because it's like having your best friend, your wife, your confidant there, and somebody tells you within that split second that she has stage 4 breast cancer, and your mindset is she's already gone. So, I started to break down inside emotionally, but it was weird, because my wife, when she heard that, she kind of made like a semi joke out of it. She said, "Wait a minute." She said, "Well, what happened to stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3?" She said, "It just skipped over those and went straight to stage 4." So she was she can tell it kind of hit me inside, like, just instantly. And so, after the doctor talked to us and everything, I went in the bathroom for a while, because he went upstairs to look at some more x-rays and everything like that. So, when I went into the bathroom, I broke down. I couldn't hold it. And I think my wife knew it. She could see it, but she kind of like, hey, she just let me go to the bathroom. And like I said, like I told you in the book, I didn't go in there and use the bathroom. I went there to break down crying. And I heard the doctor outside. And so I flushed the toilet and then, cleaned myself up, and I walked out in the room with my wife, and the doctor called me outside. And, that's when he started telling me that he was like 17, 18 years old, and his mom got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And, he was going through medical school and stuff, and that, he was doing the best that he could, but he was just running just on fumes and stuff. And he said he felt like he gave up on his mom, because at the time he was a teenager, and, he just wanted to go to school and be a doctor and everything. And his mom could see that on his face. And so she told him, like, hey, I'm tired. I want you to just go ahead and live your life, and just let me go. It's time for me to go. And he told me, face to face, that he wanted to just, if he could have that moment back to where he could be even stronger, for his mom, because he said now he looks back on it now, he's in his 30s, late 30s, early 40s. And he looked at himself like a little, he said, like a little spoiled teenager when his mom needed him. And he said if he could take that moment back, he would. But he said, you know what? He said, don't you give up on your wife. He said, I'm going to admit her to the hospital. And he said, don't give up on her. Because he said, I felt like I gave up on my mom. And he just broke down crying. And then, he walked off and did the paperwork to submit my wife to the hospital, so we could see 2 of the top specialists that dealt with breast cancer in Las Vegas.
So I want to spend some time there, Ant, because you talked about how initially where your mindset defaulted to when you were given that news.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to talk a little bit about Jess, because I know Jess as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to tell the other side of that story, because she
Okay.
didn't have that same experience.
Yeah, she sure didn't. Um, I talked to her that night and the next morning after they had moved her up to her room, and I said, I said, when I looked over at you, I said, you probably could see the look on my face. I said, it just hit me just like all of a sudden, like you were there one minute, next thing you know, you're not there. I said, what was the look on your face? Because she had, after she said the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, she had this stern look on her face. And I remember being in the military and being around special forces and stuff. And, when they're getting ready to go into combat, they have this look that just give you chills, like, they finna go and take care of business. Look. And I told her, I said, you had this look after you made the little joke, but I said, your face went into like, it's like she went into like a combat mode. And I said, what were you thinking at the time with that look? She said, I was sitting there thinking, well, I'm not gone yet. I'm here. And that just because I have stage 4, like, don't count me out. I'm not going anywhere. And she said up in her head, she was literally having a conversation up in her head. I got a husband and a son that needs me, and I'm not going anywhere. So right then and there, she made up her mind that she wasn't going anywhere.
So, I mean, that right there is literally the reason I love your book, because I believe, and I've told Jess this because we've discussed this when I interviewed you before, that had a huge part of why she beat it.
Yeah, it is.
Because from the very get-go, she knew, like, no, I'm good. I'm going to beat it.
Yeah.
And you see so many individuals, Anthony, on the other side, and Nick, you would probably totally agree with me here, of when that doctor gives that diagnosis, that patient takes that diagnosis, they slap it on their forehead, and it robs them of everything. And they literally go into a default of, I'm sick, I'm dying, there's nothing else I can do about it, and like, it's over.
Yeah.
And Jess, it's funny the way she talks about it like no big deal. She's like, oh no, the moment I got it, I was like, no, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Like, we're just going to deal with this. And that's from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So take us.
Sorry, if I could
go ahead.
jump
Go ahead, Nick.
Just to maybe just dive in a little bit deeper to that component. Did Jess ever have doubts? Because I'm just thinking of the people listening. She had the mindset. She knew the operating system had to be that, I'm going to get through this. And so for people listening, they may go, oh, geez, that's not me. I'm not strong-willed. I can't think that way. Jess is a superhuman being. She has a gift that I don't have. Yeah. How can we connect the dots so that everybody can choose this for themselves? And did Jess also have doubts, but she chose the program that superseded those doubts?
Yeah. The thing was, if I talked to her, and she said when she was kind of making a joke somewhere in there, like it had to be like a split second that she had like a little bit of nervousness because, you walk into an emergency room and they say, no, hey, stage 4 breast cancer. It's like, okay, wait a minute. So the announcement of it, there was a little bit of fear for like a second. And she even told me that instead of her thinking of the here and the now and that I've just been diagnosed, okay, let me look at what I do have. Okay, I got a husband that supports me on everything I do. I got a son that supports me. We have a house. We have 2 little bulldogs that need me. She was just going through all the positive things. She was kind of like just checking everything just off in this little block, everything that she has now to be grateful for. And it's like she went into that grateful mode instantly. And next thing you know, it's like, boom. And next thing you know, that how you said, that superhero mentality thing, that special forces combat thing, and it kicked in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What you just said right there, it sums up how people can access that information and access that superpower. It's just dive into gratitude. And that's amazing. That's a beautiful share. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and it's a choice, right? I mean, people think like, oh, well, I just felt like I went that way with my thought process. No, you're choosing to pick either to be in the positive side like Jess is or that negativity, right? And that if people only knew how powerful your mindset is when it comes to healing, and it changes the whole process of the journey. I mean, so Ant, take us on the rest of the journey, because I want you
Okay.
to talk a little bit about how when you all started treatments for Jess and how you guys started kind of diving into some of your own research and understanding some things, other things that needed to be changed lifestyle wise for you guys to be successful with this.
Yes. Um, yeah, after she got out of the hospital and everything, and the doctor had made the appointment with the specialist that we chose, we had our first meeting with the specialist, and and the first question we asked her was, after she had finished explaining like the schedule Jess was going to have as far as her chemo and getting her port in and everything. So, we asked her, is it anything as far as nutrition wise that we need to change? And she said, no. And you know how you just, it was like a feeling like if you come in this fork in the road and you have to make either a decision to make a left or a right. And if you try to make a left, it's like something internal in your gut is saying, okay, that's the wrong way to go. You need to go right. So then you go right. So that's kind of how me and Jess felt when she said that. So as soon as we left, I went on Amazon. I Googled some books, went on Amazon, started ordering some books and stuff as far as the food and everything like that. So we literally started going through the kitchen and started taking out all the sugar, because every time we did some type of research or anything, it came up sugar, processed sugar, 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 processed sugar. And then it was talking about like canned vegetables, all types of stuff. So we literally started stripping stuff out of the kitchen, not just at one whole time, because that can kind of get expensive for people to do. So what we did, we started doing it a little bit at a time, but we started with the sugar stuff first. Then and we just went from there. And next thing you know, we was eating all organic and everything. So with that, we just started from there, and then we got on like a little exercise thing as far, because we both love playing tennis. So we started playing tennis and everything. But once we started going to the treatments and everything, like I said, we had already made up our mindset how we were going to eat and stuff. So I figured to support my wife, I'm going to eat the same. Everything she eats, I'm going to eat it. So, so if I'm going to do this with her, I'm going to do it wholeheartedly. So that's what I did too. I put all my snacks, my chips and everything out. And, and my son, he did too as well, which helped all of us anyway, changing the way we eat. But also that helped her as soon as we started going to chemo. We walked in the room, and I remember this. It was probably about 60 something people in there. There were probably about 3 men. The rest were all women. And they turned around and like, just, looked at us like, what are you guys doing in here? You look way too healthy. And I guess they was trying to figure out which one of us was going to go sit in the chair. And so when my wife went over to sit in the chair, everybody was just staring, because, she still had her hair. It didn't look like anything was wrong with her. So, they started, plugging her in and everything and stuff. And like I said, everybody was still staring at her for a while. And next thing you know, she got this sticky note, and she wrote on the sticky note, and she asked the nurse to put this little sticky note on her bag. And the little sticky note, she put it on the bag. I remember the sticky note fell off, and everybody, all the patients in my wife's aisle looked at the sticky note, and she grabbed it, put it up there. And a lot of people asked, well, what's on the sticky note? And she said, the sticky note said, God's medicine on the bag. So next thing you know, we started doing the treatment and everything. And when we walked out of there, my wife, I don't know what it was. It was some type of energy or something, but it's like she never even took the bag of chemo. And it was a pretty large bag too. And I was like, well, you want to go home and rest? And she was like, nope. She said, I want to go play tennis. I'm like, are you sure? She was like, yes, I want to go play tennis. And for some reason, her energy always stayed like that. And she was supposed to stop at 6 treatments, and they took her all the way to 8, and she still kept that same energy. She had more energy than I did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I remember from your book, and I don't want to spoil the book, but she would change the message on the IV, right? Or she'd put different messages on her IV every time you guys went in.
Yes, she would.
And there you go again, just another aspect of where her head was at during this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And Aunt, can you share real quick, talk a little bit about what they were feeding everybody there?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, when we went to the chemo treatment, we would pack Jess a lunch and everything, salad, stuff like that. Soups, homemade soups, everything. So we noticed that they were walking around with a big baskets of cookies, chips, a lot of candy bars, Snickers, Butterfingers, and they were passing it around to different people. And when they got over to my wife and said, hey, you want some chips or a candy bar? She was like, nope. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, okay, why isn't she taking any of this stuff? And they kept on watching her every time they brought the basket over to her. And she was like, nope, I don't want it. Then they would take it around to everybody else. The other thing I noticed too, because every time we went in, we wasn't in the same section. We were always in different sections. They had Popeye's chicken, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell. It was a restaurant in there, pretty much. You smelled all different types of food and everything in there. But like I said before, I remember one time this one lady, she started screaming. She looked over at me and my wife, and she instantly started screaming. And she said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. She said, this is too much pain for me. It's too much. And I remember her falling out of her chair, and she hit the floor. And the nurses couldn't even grab her enough because she was kicking and screaming and said it was burning. Her skin was burning and all different types of stuff. And then one of the nurses came over. They had to pin her down, and they gave her a sedative. And once she calmed down, they put her back up in the chair, and they were able to put her port in her IV and everything. And it was just them just eating all the junk food and everything. And their body was acting totally different when they were getting the chemo. And there was people in there the same age as my wife, and they looked like they was 20 or 30 years older than my wife. They was in wheelchairs, walkers, or crutches. And everybody, kept on asking the nurses, like, hey, like, is there anything wrong with her? And one lady actually asked my wife, like, why are you in here? She was like, well, I have cancer just like you. And yeah, and they even asked my wife, well, why do I look like this and you look like that? And my wife showed her all the food that we were eating and everything. So.
Wow. You know what makes me think is when you got that message from that first doctor that said, hey, you can kind of eat whatever you want. You guys had a choice in that moment to go, oh, well, I guess the medicine that I'm receiving here is going to take care of everything, and I can just give my power away to this medicine. You guys chose to reframe what that medicine was doing. You understood the messages in water and the power of how solution can vibrate the same technology within our cells. You understood the power of nutrition. You understood the power of intention. There's so many messages in your book through your experience that I hope that anyone that's going through something similar can start to go, oh, I do have a choice. I can choose to actually reject the opinion of a doctor. And for any doctors listening, those subtle little things, those subtle little messages that we say, my goodness, they matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And good for you guys for choosing your own path and integrating. I mean, which is good. Yeah. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony, you wanted to talk a little bit about that. Nick, I'm glad you brought that up. This whole integration and the fact that you had to you had to create awareness for yourself. You had to educate yourself. I mean, you ordered books. I'm sure you guys were on the internet all the time, and you were constantly looking for other answers so that you could take this multi-therapeutic approach to help Jess on her journey to beat her cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how important, I mean, this was something that you had to learn by going through an experience in life.
Yes.
How important would you say that is for other people when they get hit with something maybe like cancer or some of these other life-threatening illnesses?
Well, you know what? And this is what I learned. When you're on a certain path, whether that's eating, the way you think, your mindset, and then you get diagnosed with something, okay, something along that line caused this, or you set something in motion with like eating a lot of greasy foods, or maybe it might be your personality, your attitude towards people or yourself, the way you think about yourself or the way you see yourself. When you get diagnosed, you can't be the same person that you were. You have to change. And I noticed that in myself, and I noticed that in my wife. We both had to change. I mean, David, you know, we're totally different people. It's like you're not awake. And then when we started doing all this research and started reading a lot of books, looking at motivational YouTube videos, getting up in the morning, just looking at like happy movies, stuff like that, our mindset and everything, it was like we were waking up and we were getting sharper, by going through this whole process.
Oh, it's crazy that you say that. We were just talking to Tommy Rosen, right, Nick, about this whole people being unconscious of not knowing who they are and having these addictions and these bad habits. And for sure, I mean, these behaviors can lead to sickness and illness, right, and disease, as we spoke. And I love that you say that, because you're absolutely 100% without a doubt correct. You have to change. And I think people, for our listeners listening really quick, the answer doesn't lie outside of you when these types of things happen, whether it's something really severe or just a mild health effect, the answer is within.
It is.
And it's so crazy how people default to looking outward. They look at the pill, they look for the injection, they look for the surgery, they're constantly looking like, oh, there's something outside of me that will just help me get well. And I don't need to change anything that I'm doing, because couldn't have been me that made me sick.
Yeah, exactly. And I put in my book where my mother-in-law, she died from brain cancer, my wife's mom. And the thing was, at the time I asked my wife, I'm like, well, what was on your mind? I said, if you could just take time for like a minute and just think about what was on your mind. I said, can you tell me what was on your mind after your mom had passed? She said, I was stressed. She said, I blamed myself for not being there for my mom. And then this was the thing. She said, well, am I going to end up with it? And she kept on replaying. She was internally, you couldn't see it on the outside, but internally she was stressed on the inside because she wasn't there. She felt like she needed to be there more for her mom. And then she was thinking about her mom's diagnosis even after her mom passed. So she was imprinting that in herself. Like I said, I couldn't see it, but she was her thoughts. It was just like a recording. It was repeating itself. And then she got diagnosed.
Yeah, that's a powerful message right there, what you shared. And I'm just sitting back here listening and going, geez, you got so much wisdom in how you're speaking. I wish more people could adopt this kind of mindset, because these are all these facets that really make or break our ability to heal. When we've got these Achilles heels holding us back because of a mindset, or not willing to look at some of the emotional patterning or some of the traumas that have come up, that was obviously part of our healing, just to bring awareness to that piece as well.
Yes.
Another thing you brought up in the book, which I just loved, because you do have that deep insight, you started to reflect these different moments, which I've heard being called before, like God moments, the signs of inspiration that you're kind of on the right path. And you you highlighted a few of them, which I thought were so beautiful. It was such amazing insight that you brought. And, sometimes we don't always get the messages in the most obvious of ways. But if you could share maybe one or two of those messages that you got that just kind of let you know that, I'm being supported. I've got that, divine connection. Something's guiding me. Something's letting me know that everything's okay.
Yes. The one night when we were sitting in the bed, and and they was telling my wife that she had to either have a bisectomy or a double bisectomy, and I remember her. We was talking about it, and she started crying. And I was like, well, what's wrong? And she was like, well, she said, are you still going to love me? Am I still going to look beautiful to you? And I was like, yeah, no. I said, don't worry. I said, don't worry about that. I said, no. I said, it's not what made me fall in love with you. I said, it was your personality. I said, your smile. I said, your voice. I said, it was everything else. And I said, no. I said, I want you to put that, out of your mind and everything. So that night we went to bed. I remember saying a prayer. And I remember, just something my grandmother always told me. And she said, when you feel like you're at a point where that you can't help yourself, she said, God's always there to help you. She said, that's all you have to do is ask. And, and my grandmother, I wish, all the things that she taught me, I wish she was here today because, man, like I said, you think I'm wise. My grandmother was like just super wise, but I remember her saying that, and all of a sudden, right before I went to bed, I remember that, and it played in my head like she was there with me, like she had just said it in my ear. And I remember asking my grandmother and God, I like, can you please help me? I said, I'm at a point to where I don't know. I think I'm stuck. I don't know what direction to go. I said, please help me, help heal my wife. And I remember going to bed. And I remember waking up. It felt like seconds. Like it's like as soon as I went to bed, I remember going around the bed, and I don't remember touching the floor or anything. And I remember bending down by my wife, and my wife was very still. And I remember putting my hands on my wife's over her liver. And I'm not good at saying prayers. My prayers are like all broken. They say there's no good way to say prayers, so, but me, my prayers are all broken. So, I, as soon as I put my hands on her, all of a sudden the prayers just started flowing. They were like connected. It was just like an easy flow. And I remember I felt heat on my left shoulder. And then I remember feeling heat on my right shoulder. It was like two people, one was standing over here, one was standing over here, because I felt this before. And I remember the heat was slowly running down my arms, and it hit my hands. And as soon as it hit my hands, I remember sweat started pouring off from under my hand between my wife's body and under my hands. And the sweat was just pouring down. And I remember a thought that I have, like, well, I hope this doesn't wake my wife up. She never moved at all. She never moved. And like I said, I remember sitting there praying, and I did not feel the floor when I was on my knees or anything. And I just remember getting up, and I walked back around. At least I felt like I floated, but I walked back around to the bed, and I remember going back to sleep. But at the same time, that same night, I remember I had a dream. And it was so real. I remember being in this dream, and it was one of those dreams that teaches you like a lesson that will carry you through whatever you're going through in life or whatever. It's one of those dreams that's so real that it's just, when you come out of the dream, it's like, okay, I'm ready to go now, And like I said, I don't know if you guys want me to tell you the dream, because like I said, people haven't read the book, but it's one of the pivotal parts of the book. So do you want me to tell?
I don't want you to spoil the book, and
Okay.
you don't have to go into detail, but maybe we can discuss a little bit about what the aha moment kind of was that came out of that.
Okay.
Can you
Yes.
do that?
Yes.
Too much?
I just got to interrupt for a sec. I'm getting the craziest shivers listening to you. It's like every hair is standing on end. Like you're speaking to some really powerful stuff. So thank you so much for everything you've shared so far. And yeah, I agree with David. Let's leave it as a cliffhanger for people. But
Okay.
give us the messaging. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So so it was one of those things where it was how you said fight or flight. So when I came out of this dream, and that morning I ran into my wife in the bathroom, it was a totally different me. It wasn't a flight, it was a fight. And it was a strength that was I don't even know what you call it. I just felt like super strong as far as like my being a supporter, being a caregiver. It's like I came out and I had a Superman symbol on my chest and I was ready to go. And my wife noticed it too, because, later on, and, I discussed this with David later on, I talked to my wife, after she had finished her chemo and everything. And, we finally had time to sit down and really talk deeply about it. She said that she always had a concern whether or not I was going to leave her. And she said she was just waiting for me to come and talk to her. And I said, that's the thing. I said, I was fighting up in my head. I said, I love you more than anything. And I said, I told her, I said, it was that fear. The fear was wanting to make me leave. But I said, I didn't want to leave because the love was keeping me here. So I said, I had an internal battle. But I said, once I had that dream, then that just pushed that whole fear to the side. And once it pushed the whole fear to the side, there it was. That fight was there.
I can totally relate to that story, Anthony. And we've had this discussion. My wife Clarissa, she got diagnosed almost 10 years ago now with an autoimmune disease. Almost lost her life. I almost lost her, kind of at the beginning of that journey with us.
Yeah.
But I can totally relate to this whole, it's like that switch turns on.
Mm-hmm.
Because before that switch turned on for me, the fear was there. And the fear is real. I mean, that fear,
it is.
I don't think anybody gets through life without getting those punches in the stomach where life just gives it to you, right? And I think it's in a different form for everybody. Some people it's their health, some people it's relationships. I mean, it's a lot of different things.
Yes.
But when you get hit with that and it gets to another level that you have not experienced in your life, that fear sets in very quickly and it can overwhelm you.
It can.
And this is kind of what we're talking about with like Jess earlier. Like that, I don't think that ever hit Jess, but I know it hit you, and like I know it hit me when Clarissa got sick.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Clarissa about that, but you get hit with that, and then you do have to deal with it.
Yes.
But then you have to rise above it, and you're literally talking about like the hero rising from the ashes of like, you made a choice. I mean, you had a dream, you had that aha moment, you had that epiphany, and then you woke up and it's like you were in a different mode. And then everything you do from that moment changes because you just flipped the switch on. And for me, it was the same as you. It was like, not going anywhere. We're going to get her well.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It was that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just sitting back and going, this is such a fun conversation. I want to just get into that. You mentioned some interesting stuff. So the role of caretaker, caregiver, is not a typical natural role for men.
Yes.
To live in or operate from. The man or the male perspective typically comes down to, I need to fix this. And when I know that I've lost my control over a situation, there's a lot of fear there. I want to hear a little bit about your fear in that sort of male mentality. Like, I'm the protector. I keep everyone safe. I've got this. It's my turn to do something to fix this. And Jess sounds like a firecracker. Can't wait to meet this woman one day. she created this place of steadiness, which people can go to, and women, men, I mean, anyone can go to. And she chose that for herself. She didn't need you to do anything.
No.
She just needed you to be that superhero for
That's
her,
it.
stay steady. So please just get into that a little bit, because that's some amazing stuff.
Yeah, because like I said, I knew the mindset that she was in, but at the same time, she didn't know the internal battle that I was going through. So I knew that I had to kind of, like you said, Jess was already there. I had to kind of bring myself up to her level. And like I said, and after writing this book, I ran into like so many couples and so many stories, whether, is at Sprouts or Whole Foods, or, me and my wife, we've been invited to a church where this one lady walked up to me and told me that they have this 26-year-old couple that has a little boy and a little girl, and the mom got diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and the husband literally walked out on the family and left them. Wow. And this is the thing. Now, I'm going to quote a rapper here. It's P. Diddy. And he even said that you either can stay in the darkness or you can come out into the light. And some people choose to stay out in the darkness. Some people chose to walk out into the light. Me and David chose to walk out into the light. And that's the thing. You got to make a choice. But like I said, sometimes the fear can just be so overwhelming that it literally only thing left for us to do as far as men, because, like you said before, the women are built to be the caregivers and take care of the parents, take care of the grandparents, and the men, we're just, we're there to provide and be security for the family and everything. So, so I had to get into that role of being a caregiver. And like I said, I have much respect for all the women in this world, because, a caregiver's job is unreal. Mm-hmm. Just as far as the emotional aspect of it and just, keeping yourself together to support someone. Mm-hmm. But like I said before, it's just, as far as us men being a caregiver is, you have to get yourself in that mold, because it's been a trend going on now to where the men, as soon as the wife or the spouse get a diagnosis, they want to walk away, because it's like, okay, I done ran out of everything I'm supposed to do as a man. Okay, now what? I think I'll just let the fear take me over and I'll just leave. Mm-hmm. And it's been countless stories like that I've heard. I even heard it from an 80-year-old man that his mom got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and his dad walked out on them and left him there to take care of his mom. And he stayed there with his mom until she passed away. It was just him and his mom. So Wow. It's just countless stories.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have a similar experience, but my father did. My mom had a cerebral aneurysm burst when they were traveling in France, and my dad is like, he's a stoic guy. He's provider, all these things, and I could have never ever imagined him in the role of a caretaker. Yeah, and it's like something switches. He just repurposed his life. Yeah, changed the identity of who he was, and man, seeing him and still, like, my mom's still healing. Yeah, so seeing him still like align with that role. I mean, it's a big shout out to all caregivers, women, men, nurses, doctors, whoever. You're a good friend. Yeah, we can't take for granted how important it is to play that role of cheerleader and stay steady and stay strong for the people in our lives. And and it's a really scary choice to be and do different, but man, it makes all the difference in the world for those loved ones in our lives.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah.
Well, and Anthony, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Nick talks about this repurposing. We talk about that switch going on. You talk about life being different. Mm-hmm. Outside of you just becoming this caregiver and being there for Jess and that switch turning on for you, how has that impacted your life just for you as you moved forward? Has life gotten better for you?
Oh yes, it's it's gotten a whole lot better. At the time, like I said, when me and Jess started on this journey, I was 315. I stopped eating sugar and changed the way I eat and stuff, and I went from 315 down to 252. So
Wow.
that helped me, as far as with the eating and everything. The other thing was, I get up no matter what. I get up around about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't. It doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I have this internal clock that I get up around between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, and I will go in my room. I have a meditation room, and I meditate. I'll say my prayers. I visualize and everything. And a lot of times I'll stay up and go to the gym around about 4 in the morning, work out, and then I'll be up the rest of the day. I'll get back from the gym, make breakfast for my wife and stuff, and get my bulldogs up and take them out for a walk and everything. So it really got me on a really good schedule to where I take time out for myself. Because as far as being a caregiver and stuff, you have to take care of yourself, including in order for you to take care of someone else. So, but it definitely, because I never meditated before. And once I got into meditating and stuff, and David, I've been taking life coach classes and stuff, so that definitely helped me right there with the PTSD. So that helped me control that. So, so far as I know, I'm the only one, and there's probably other ex-soldiers out there, but I'm not on medication. I haven't been on medication in 18, 19 years. I chose not to be on medication. At the time, I didn't know what I had, but once they told me what I had, they tried to put me on oat meds and everything like that, and I told them no. And they said, well, what have you been doing? I said, I've been meditating and praying. And they said, well, just keep doing what you're doing. So I was like, okay, but somewhere along the line, I guess they didn't believe me. So they still sent me all the medication, but I didn't take the medication, and I'm controlling it. For all the people out there don't think that you can't control your PTSD. I have the worst case of PTSD. Like, I used to wake up and my whole pillow was wet. If I wore a shirt to bed, the shirt was wet. I made an imprint in the bed. So I was like fighting like all night. I was in a battle in my head all night. I couldn't remember the battle, but it was a battle. But now, 2 or 3 years, I haven't had one of those dreams. I stopped sweating, everything. And it's just off of meditating and prayer and keeping yourself in a positive mindset. It's like one of those, how people always used to say, what's the worst that can happen? Now I say, what's the best that can happen? It's just my mindset that's unchanged that much.
That's incredible.
Well, for our listeners, I know Anthony, he's devout and habitual with his meditation. I mean, that's one of the things we actually discuss a lot about, and we have discussions about, is just meditation and what that brings to our lives and the benefits and things like that. I'm sorry, Nick, did you want to say something?
You cut me off there, so I kind of lost it. No, I think I'm glad you went into that part of the story, because it's like, we say, physician, heal thyself, or you can't take care of someone else until you take care of yourself. I mean, imagine what life would have been like had you been on opiates or other things, antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics, or whatever, for the duration of time since you came home from your tour. Mm-hmm. Like, what kind of state, mentally, biochemically, emotionally, physically, does that version of you look like when a diagnosis for your beloved other, comes into play? Like, that's where people do escape, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and and a lot of times those medications put you in a zombie state, and your body is there, but your mind isn't. And with something like that, you need to be fully present, body and mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, you're like a samurai master with that mindset, homie. I love it. I'm serious. Like, I hope our listeners, I hope they're really getting the nuggets of what you bring with just everything from your story, the journey, and just these simple things that we're discussing. They seem so simple, I think, when people listen on the outside, but when you really think about what we're talking about, when you live this, it elevates your life. You have the best day ever every day.
Yes. Yes,
And that's not to say that you don't have bad days, but your bad days when you live in this kind of life for yourself, they're not that bad, you know? And when you look back at them, you're probably just tired and you just feel a little irritated, but you probably still had a pretty solid day, and life's pretty great.
Yeah. I have a lot of good days and less bad days, and even when I do have a bad day, I don't less. It's 24 hours. I have 24 hours, and within that 24 hours, I can't let one little incident let the rest of those hours be bad. So once an incident or something, you stump your toe in the room on the bed, at that morning, what you're going to do, you're going to let that, you stump your toe that morning, you're going to let that ruin the rest of your day. No, you have all those hours. That probably took like 2 or 3 seconds for you to stump your toe, but you still have all those hours during the rest of the day. Don't let that one event mess up the rest of your day. So that's where I'm at,
I've seen some pretty stumped toes in my day, buddy, so that probably depends on how bad you hit it. I just had a patient come in like 2 weeks ago. She broke 2 bones in her foot doing that. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I said stumped toes, not broken toes.
Different story. Hey, I was going to say that another thing that I loved about what you shared in the book was, as soon as you found out what was going on, one possibility would have been just to go into seclusion,
Yes.
be in hibernation mode, be the Superman, take care of everything. But when you left the hospital, you went right over to your friend's house. You asked for community,
Yes.
Intentionally or unintentionally, you knew to get help and emotional support immediately. I mean, that's amazing. That's like an innate gift that you just knew to do, and not everyone would know to do that. And and that stayed with you, right? Can you speak to that a little bit about community and your prayer group and some of that stuff?
Yes. We had a wonderful neighbor and friends, Babette and Brian, and like I said, once I left the hospital, I went right over there and started talking to Brian and Babette. And, they started getting a prayer group together. And, me and Jess, we started going over to the prayer group and everything. And, it was a great support group. And I suggest that everybody at least try to find some type of support group, because our prayer group in Las Vegas, I mean, they were so wonderful. We always seen bits and pieces of them at church and everything, but it was so great to have all of them to come over, like on Thursdays over at Babette's house, so we could have a prayer group and everything. And, I mean, it was so great. And like I said, having that support group and having, different individuals to talk to and everything, it was awesome. So that was a big stabilizer for us as well, just having the prayer group,
Yeah, it's amazing. You've shared so many nuggets, and I'm just going to sort of recap some. And Dave, please highlight some of the pieces here. So we talked about you gotta repurpose your mindset. You gotta repurpose your identity. You gotta focus on changing your nutrition.
Yes.
You can program the medicine so that it's intentionally working towards you, and it's not this chemical moving into your body.
Yes.
Which many people have a negative attachment to all sorts of different medicines and things like that. You looked and sought out and sustained community. David, help me out here. What are some other amazing nuggets?
A connection to a higher power.
Yeah.
Whether that's God, whether that's the universe, I mean, whatever it is, you have to have that spiritual piece to take you through something like that.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, that's huge. So there's so many pieces here that, we talked about this in relation to cancer, but as David said, I mean, it's hit your wife, Clarissa, with an autoimmune disease, my mom and dad with the brain aneurysm. You're really talking about an opportunity for anyone, forget about predetermining, this is who I am, this is who I've always been. We all have a capacity to shift in a moment.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what you guys chose. Had you chose the other opportunity, the other choice, we would be talking in a completely different paradigm here. and we all have access to that. So, we always leave a podcast with some messages, some home play. What are like, and please tell the name of your book again, just so people can, how can people learn more about what is it you're sharing, and what are some nuggets you think that people could start to implement to say if they're faced with crisis?
Oh, okay. Yes, the title of my book is A Husband's Best Friend and a Caregiver, the True Story of the Struggle Within. You can find my book on Amazon or at Barnes and Nobles. I would say to a lot of people, like depending on like what mindset you're in or whatever, I started like reading a lot of different books, a lot of motivational books. Like one of the books I read, The Power of Positive Energy, and that is by Adrian Theodore. So I read a lot of books like that. One book I read is, excuse my language, but this is the title of the book, Kick Ass with Mel Robbins. Wonderful lady. Yeah, but wonderful lady. But she also, but all of these books, they have their stories of different things that they went through, almost losing their house, bankruptcy, almost getting a divorce. They went through some traumatic experiences. So I read a lot of their books, and and they came out of, they had to reinvent themselves. They had to change their mindset and everything. So I like to read like different books like that. Another book is Mental Toughness, and that is by William Fisher. So so I just read a lot of stuff like that, and that's actually what helped me grow too.
So there you go. We speak to that every episode. We talk about finding help, whether it's in the form of a book, a workshop, a seminar, a conference, a health coach. Whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. When you're having these struggles in life, you don't do it alone. Go and find connection to something else to help yourself get through these things. So I would say the home plan, we'd probably say, where in our listeners' lives do you need to have this? Where do we need to flip the switch? And don't wait for something traumatic necessarily to happen. There's probably things right now, presently, right? Yeah. Kind of dissect it, look at everything and see where does that flip, where do I need to turn the lights on and bring that, like you said, bring the light versus the darkness into my life.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, before I started reading the books, I started off with the YouTube videos. There's a lot of motivational YouTube videos out there where you can save them and you can play them in the morning, play them in the afternoon, play them before you go to sleep. So I was playing like 4 or 5 motivational YouTube videos, and they're very inspirational. So,
gotta love YouTube.
Yeah, definitely.
Anthony, thank you so much for coming on with us today. This was a pleasure, man. It was a blast just discussing all these things with you. Tell Jess we said hello.
I will do, and thank you guys for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Anthony. It's great meeting you. First time I get a chance to connect with you, and it's a pleasure, especially after reading your book. And I think the listeners are going to want to go to that cliffhanger moment when you had that dream. So just a reminder.
Yeah.
Some nuggets waiting for you.
No, thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and